Okay, so I'm gonna cut right to the point here. Framer motion is changing. Fortunately, it's changing almost certainly for the better. Matt Perry here, who is the creator of Framer Motion and has been working on Framer Motion for the last 6 or so years, I believe, at Framer, has just announced that he's gonna be taking Framer and he's going to be splitting it off into its own independent project outside of Framer, the company. He's actually rolling it into another project that he's been running for a while, just called Motion, which is in itself a lot like Framer Motion. But I think before we kind of get to that point, we can start with a little bit of backstory. So if you're interested in kind of the full breakdown, Matt has a post on it, which I'm not going to read through myself right this second. I will link it down in the comments if you want to see all of his thoughts on this and a little bit more about this piece of the backstory. But in short, if you want to know a little bit about Matt, Matt was originally the author of a library called Pop Motion. Pop Motion was also an animation library. It still exists from what I understand. I don't know if it's actively maintained, but it does still exist. And Framer, from what I understand, the company Framer purchased Pop Motion, and Matt, kind of as a part of that, to come over and work on animations kind of under Framer to power Framer, the web builder, essentially. Now, I don't still have any links to the old Framer Motion docs because they are now on the Motion docs, but essentially, if you've followed Framer Motion at all, or you've followed me at all, you know that Framer Motion has been under this company Motion, obviously. So he worked developing Framer Motion for the last 6 or so years into what is now this industry standard, amazing, super in-depth, super valuable tool for the community for creating web animations with React. And that has been fantastic, but it's kind of brought us to this point. So for a little bit more backstory, on the side, you may have actually heard of this before, Matt also started working on a project called Motion 1 under the motion.dev docs now. If you go to JS, that's what, from what I understand, this used to be. I had heard of Motion 1, I played with it a little bit, but not too much. And what you'll see is it looks a lot like Framer Motion's Animate API. So just like the, the callable, like the function kind of version, not the declarative version of Framer Motion, but more like the imperative version that looks kind of syntax like this. And this is just a super lightweight JavaScript library that can be used in any framework, right? It doesn't do everything that Framer Motion does, but it does a whole lot of it. Like you can do, view-based animations, you have your spring easing, stuff like that. And essentially what's happened here is we've now split off Framer Motion into Motion Dev as an independent project under the React version of Motion 1, which is now called just Motion. So what you're gonna see if you look at their docs is everything looks exactly the same, except now you're going to do npm install Motion instead of Framer Motion, and you're going to import from Motion/React. And inside of the same library, you're also going to get this additional kind of Motion 1 library, which looks something like this. And we're going to get to why that's really cool here in a second, but kind of backtracking back over to React. I want to talk a little bit about what this means for the existing version of Framer Motion. First and foremost, if you're using the actual install for Framer Motion, just like, this, that is going to continue working. From what I understand, it's going to continue working indefinitely. I've installed both at the same version, at the latest version, they both work fine. And Matt has actually even confirmed on his Twitter under the announcement that this is the case. So you will continue to use Motion. You can continue to import it from Framer Motion. So nothing breaking in, at least, in the immediate term, if you're upgrading your Framer Motion version. And I think in the long term as well, all of the features from Framer Motion are, I believe at this point, one-to-one still. I know at least the documentation, as far as I've seen, has all been moved over. So TLDR on all of that, nothing that exists really changes. The exciting piece of this, though, is moving forward, kind of what the possibilities are. We'll kind of scroll through this tweet thread and we can see kind of some of the stuff that Matt is talking about. But the thing that I'll say that I personally am most excited about is that it seems like there's going to be a lot more of a push to make Framer Motion available and documented for more than just React. If you ever used Framer, the site builder before, like the CMS before, you'll know that it is built on top of React. You can build React components inside of Framer. So I think from what I understand on the outside, I'm sure there was a lot more push to just keep Framer Motion as a React specific library, which does not seem from the comments and some of the things that I've seen in Discord and some of the conversations I've been seeing, is not going to continue to be the case. In fact, this already technically isn't the case because we have this just JS library here that we can use. This already existed as Motion 1. Like I said, Motion 1 is, or whatever they're calling it now, just Motion, is not one-to-one with Framer Motion yet. But over the next, however long, couple of months, from what I understand, we're going to be seeing a lot more shifts of the tools that are available in Framer Motion or Motion React now, moving over to the just JS version of this library. So you're going to get a lot more of the tools that you get just out of Framer Motion, albeit I'm sure they'll look a little bit different, right? Which is really, really exciting if you're somebody who is a fan of Framer Motion, but does not primarily work inside of React. As one example of something that's already confirming this thought is this comment here from Matt. So someone's asking about about when there's going to be a version of this for Vue. And what Matt is saying right here is all React and vanilla for now, which is kind of what we're seeing, but certainly Vue integration guides, literally a draft in progress. So there's going to be at least more documentation on how you can use the vanilla version of Motion to integrate with Vue and other libraries, which is fantastic. It means that I can make more videos on those types of things. Maybe I'll occasionally make non-React specific videos. And obviously beyond me, it's just great for the community that we have someone awesome like Matt taking what he's learned from building Framer Motion and making it more accessible to, the 80% of the world that's not using React. Obviously, we get a lot of the great things that just come from, open source in general. Not that the project wasn't already open source, but I have a feeling we're going to see a lot more community contributions. Hopefully, Matt can start to get some help for doing things like documenting the use in Vue and other frameworks. And I'm also happy to say that Matt has already gotten a decent chunk of sponsors that are already backing this project. So Framer is continuing to sponsor it. Tailwind, Emil Kowalski, Linear are all, from what I understand, platinum sponsors. So I'm sure this is already enough for Matt to be able to go on this full time. And then a lot of names, obviously I've gone ahead and dropped a sponsor on this, but some other familiar faces from YouTube, from Framer Motion, kind of UI land. So Build UI, Front End FYI, a bunch of people are already backing this, Firecrawl, Puzmo, Statamic, and I expect to see this list continue to grow. Of course, if you and your company are willing to contribute, I'm sure that Matt would massively appreciate it, whether it's with your money or with your time, however you can contribute. That's how projects like this continue to move forward. I will take just a second to talk about what this means for my channel and what this means for Hover. Obviously, I make a lot of Framer Motion or animation specific content on my channel. It's really the main focus of kind of the videos that I'm making here, and nothing's going to change. As I mentioned, all of my past videos should continue to work exactly as they are. All the tutorials, if you follow through them using Framer Motion, all of that's going to continue to work. And I'm really, really excited about potentially being able to expand out into more frameworks and expand out into other parts of the library as it continues to grow. And the same is also true for my website. So if you're not familiar, I run a website called hover.dev. Hover is an animated UI library for React and Tailwind, where pretty much everything, all but I would say 98% of components are animated with Framer Motion. All of this at this point, every component you're going to find in here is for React. Obviously it's even in my H1 here, but this can change over time, right? As we get more support, as we get more documentation, because we're using kind of the same libraries, potentially we could see components that are available in not just React, but in Vue and in whatever other libraries that make the most sense to add. I am one person, so not going to promise this is something that happens overnight, but I would suspect that eventually I'll take some time and I'll go back through and I'll start chunking these components out into additional frameworks as well. I will say that in the immediate term, I'm going to keep everything as Framer Motion, at least for imports on Hover, and I'm not going to go back and comment on every single one of my videos or anything, or change titles, really just to avoid confusion. But I will say that going forward, I am going to be using Motion instead of Framer Motion. I want to do my best to help people understand this shift. So if you see me labeling things Framer Motion and then talking in the video about this shift, that's just because I know it's probably going to be confusing for people. It's something that was already a little bit confusing, right? Framer Motion, called Framer, there's Framer the company. That was already confusing for people. And now that just becoming Motion, I understand that this could be confusing for people. So that's something that hopefully I and some other content creators that create videos and create content on Framer Motion can kind of help alleviate some of that confusion going forward. But beyond that, I want your suggestions, both in, what kind of content you guys want me to see. Are you wanting to see things on Vue with motion.dev now? Are you wanting to see things in other libraries? Are you wanting to just continue to see things in React? What types of things should Matt be looking at working on? How should he be prioritizing things? How should I be prioritizing things? Anything that you think is interesting to share, I would absolutely appreciate a comment down below, just letting me know. Obviously, also go ahead and let Matt know. But yeah, that's pretty much it for now. Again, I'm going to make one more call out on sponsoring the project if you or your company have the means. Anything helps. I'm sure Matt would massively appreciate it in this shift from a normal 9 to 5 to being a steward of an open source project. So check that out. Links in the description, and I will see you guys next time. Peace.